Welcome to the next part of our video on the axial muscles. We are now going to look at the abdominal region. No, my workout did not have me do abdominal muscles. I was doing more shoulders. It's a shoulder workout. But I'm actually shocked it didn't make me do abs because everything makes me do abs. Like I said, I don't have them. We're going to start by looking at connective tissues of the abdominal cavity, or the abdominal muscles. There's this line that runs up and down like that, called the linea line alba. One of my students about 10 years ago, maybe 12, 13 years ago, said you could remember it because of Jessica Alba, who, according to this student, has nice abs. I have never seen Jessica Alba's abs. I never plan to, so I will take his word for it. It runs from the xiphoid process to the pubic symphysis. And a lot of these muscles are going to attach to it one way or the other. You have the external oblique right here. It's actually attaching technically to it. You have the transverse abdominis. Yep, that's attaching to it. So they're all going to attach to it one way or another. And it forms the middle of the rectus abdominis. So a lot of people want a six-pack. I have one sitting in the fridge right now. It's a six-pack of soda. But apparently they're referring to their muscles of their abdomen. And that's because if you don't have 20 inches of fat like me, you actually have these connective tissue elements that go in a transverse plane. Now, I want these to be transverse something. No. They're called tendinous because they're tendons. Intersections. Tendinous intersections. They run in a horizontal plane. And there are three of them. There is a superior one, an inferior one, and a middle one. So we should be like this guy and go for an 8-pack. I'm joking. I can't even get a 6-pack. I can't even get a 2-pack. I might be because I drink too much soda. Just a thought there. So there's three of them. It is okay to have adipose tissue over them. I would like to add to that. I tell my swim coach makes me do all of these dolphin kick things. I'm like, I really should have abs by now. And he always responds, you probably do. They're just covered. So it's perfectly okay if you don't have a 6-pack. So the layers of the abdominal wall. I will test you on this. This is very important. You actually have 3 layers. You have one layer that's actually lining your inside of your abdominal wall, so your liver could be right there. You have the superficial layer, and then you have the middle layer. Then their connective tissue sort of goes around the rectus abdominis, and look, it all hits the linea alba. So there's 3 walls, or 3 muscles in the abdominal wall. There's the external oblique, which is the most superficial, then the internal oblique, and then the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest one. And what does oblique mean to you? Oblique means at an angle. So I'm going to go and color on our friend the skeleton some more. So here's our friend. And remember the intercostals, we have our deeper internal intercostal that goes like this. Then we have our more superficial intercostal that goes like this, right? And those are the internal and external intercostals. Well, these muscles are going to form a similar pattern. Our first muscle is going to be the transverse abdominis. Now, transverse means the muscles are going in a transverse plane, and they're starting back here, and they're going all the way to the front. So they're going all the way. So they're doing a transverse plane. Maybe starting with blue is not a good idea. So this is the transverse abdominis. And this is why you cannot say the rectus abdominal. Oops, that's not an eraser. And they have connective tissue. That's going to be behind the linea alba. Boy, he has a big linea alba. So our next muscle is going to go from, I swear I picked yellow, from right here, from the iliac crest, and it is going to go to the xiphoid process right there and the costal cartilage. So it's going to go upwards like so. So see how the blue one is the deep one? And it too is sort of going to end up touching the linea alba. Again, goes around the rectus abdominis. So this is going at an angle. This is called the internal oblique. So our deep muscle is the transverse abdominis, then the internal oblique. For the sake of some argument, we're going to put on our rectus abdominis here. So this would be the rectus abdominis. There's our six-pack. Remember, there's 8 of them. So that's the rectus abdominis. And lastly, and most importantly, actually not most importantly, they're all equally important, we have the external oblique. The internal one went from the iliac crest to the xiphoid process. This is going from the ribs all the way down to the pubic symphysis, which you cannot see. So these are external oblique. So that's the muscles of the abdominal wall. You have the transverse abdominis like this. You have the internal oblique like that. You have the rectus abdominis taking up the middle here. And then lastly, you have the external oblique going like that. So the deepest of the muscles is the transverse abdominis. As you can see, it does start all the way back here, goes all the way around, and it is going to have its insertion on the linea alba and the xiphoid process. Can you tell I like saying those names? Its origin is the lower ribs of the fascia on the back, the iliac crest, the inguinal ligament, and it really goes all the way around, and it compresses the abdomen. And the fibers run in a transverse plane. So here is most of the muscles cut out. That's the internal. And we could see here in yellow, we have the transverse abdominis. Then we have the internal oblique, which I did in green right there. So the transverse abdominis goes like this. The internal oblique starts at the iliac crest and moves upwards. So starts at the iliac crest right there, moves upwards. So the insertion is ribs 10 through 12. And the linea alba, how can we forget her? And the origins, the iliac crest. And it too compresses. It lets you swing a bat. It lets you do abdominal rotations. I would be doing the palm tree right now if this was a lecture class. So the palm tree is a yoga pose where you basically bend to one side or another. So we have our TA, our transverse abdominis. We have our internal oblique that runs from the iliac crest up. And you can see them. Here is the TA, the transverse abdominis. Here's the internal oblique. It is running upwards. So the internal oblique, you can't see it, would be running like that. We then have the external oblique going in the opposite direction. It's starting up here and going down towards the pubic symphysis. So external oblique inserts on the iliac crest and the pubic symphysis. It compresses the abdomen. The origin is the ribs. So all of these compress the abdomens. They're used in forced exhalation. They're used in urination, in defecation, in expelling squatters from uteri. So lastly, we have the rectus abdominis. That is the one that is running like this. The fibers of the rectus abdominis are running north to south. Like that. How can we forget it's an 8-pack? Again, people, I don't even have a 2-pack. So rectus abdominis Its insertion is the xiphoid cartilage, or xiphoid process and costal cartilage. It compresses the abdomen, flexes the hip at the trunk. So my roommate in college freshman year dragged me to karate. I hate him still for that. It was the worst workout ever. It kicked my butt so hard. It was so cool. Basically, to start everything, you bow at the waist. A deep bow. That is using your rectus abdominis. So, its origin is the pubic symphysis and the pubic bone. So, again, we have the transverse abdominis as the deepest one. The next one is going to be the internal oblique. We then have the external oblique, like so. And then here, sort of covering it all, is the rectus abdominis. So they are layered, they go in different directions. So apparently a band of barbarians has moved in upstairs, so you might be able to hear them. We have one more muscle to deal with. So the rectus abdominis is going to flex you at the waist. So basically flexing at the waist. Here's our stick figure. Wow, our stick figure's gained weight. Flexing at the waist would be like this. So that's flexing at the waist. Now, when you're on my age, when you do that, you're stuck that way. You young people need something to get you back upright. So that is the erector. It erects you. Spinea, spine group. There's actually 3 muscles. I've never been big on all 3 of them because on the cadavers we can never tell them apart. So there's 3 groups. They basically run the length of your back north to south. And what they're going to do, they erect your spine. Hence, erector spinea. So the blank flexes at the hip while the erector blank extends. Ooh, which abdominal? It's not transverse, so it's one of these 2. And it erects the spine, so it must be number 4. Which muscle helps you exhale? No, that's an inhale. That's an inhale. That's an inhale. The internal intercostals help you inhale. We didn't even talk about that. Remember, it's evil and X at its origin. Arrange from superficial to deep. I might ask you the other way on the test. So the most superficial one is the external oblique. I don't even have to read the other answer choices. So it is external oblique, internal oblique, transverse abdominis. From deep to superficial, it would be this one. So that is it. We'll be going on to the appendicular skeleton because these muscles, like the pectoralis major and pectoralis minor, all actually act on the arms. Thank you.